Hi, folks. Welcome to Color Music Collective's Social Media in the Music Business panel, sponsored by DistroKid. My name is Marcella. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm the Executive Director of COMC, as well as one of your moderators tonight. Yeah, we'll kick it off with introductions, and we'll have each of our panelists go around and say their name, their pronouns, company, and their clients. And we'll start with Matt.
Gotta hit unmute. Hi, my name is Matt Gehring, pronouns he, him, his. I am on the social media team at MTV. So clients could really be whoever. It could be whoever's performing at, our award shows or just on a general daily basis of who we're interested in. We also have a MTV push artist every month. This month it's Olivia Rodrigo, so I'm very excited about that. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Very excited for Sour to come out.
Oh my God.
And how about you, Chris?
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I'm Chris. Pronouns she, her. I am currently no longer at Warner, but I was Warner Latina's social media manager up until recently. And basically who we work with are artists. So Justin Quiles, definitely the Latina branch. Justin Quiles, De La Ghetto, Zion y Lennox. So, just those names there. And we also worked whenever a Warner Music Group artist wanted to, kind of reach out to the Latin community, we would do the marketing for those artists as well. So a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. And how about you, Yibing?
Hi, my name is Yibing, and my pronouns are she, her. And I work for Columbia Records. I'm part of the international digital marketing team. So some of the, current very active artists on our roster include Lil Nas X, Lil TJ, the Kid Laroi, who I think was a push artist recently on MTV. Miley Cyrus, Kid Laroi, Miley Cyrus were together on SNL this past weekend. And yeah, my role is just to kind of work very closely with the US digital marketing team and make sure that the strategy and the message and the narrative that we're working for a specific artist or project is properly, kind of disseminated around the world, so that we can get the, just widest reach possible for our projects.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So just for a bit of structure for our panel tonight is we'll run through a few discussion questions, and our panelists will jump in wherever they'd like. And then we'll jump into Q&A at the end where each of you can have the opportunity to ask our panelists a question. We'll probably choose around one or two, and then you will unmute yourselves and ask your question directly to them, which is awesome. Great, so let's jump into our first question, which is how would you describe your main demographic and what are some of the ways you work to cater to that demographic's interests?
I mean, I feel like, Matt, you can go ahead because my end, I don't really manage any social media channels. Just really depends on the artist, but I can jump into that after Matt.
Totally, yeah. So at MTV, it's a brand with a really long history and a lot of different parts to it. Obviously, if you're watching MTV on TV, you're not listening to much music. But if you're putting on one of our music stations, which we still do, fun fact, have, obviously you are listening to music. And on social, we are first and foremost all things music. So in that realm, I would say just generally the music lovers from 18 to 34 is really like the main group. It does skew a bit toward women, but it's really whoever is into pop music, but I would use that phrase really as popular music, not as strictly, Ariana Grande. It could be a lot of different things in 2021. So yeah, I guess that's a bit of like the MTV demo, but it's also just reaching the people that are interested in the same artists as us on the social media team are interested in. We kind of get to curate who we want to reach ourselves, which is pretty cool.
I'm kind of curious, before other folks jump in, how do you work to sort of bridge the gap between the different platforms? Like you said, MTV on TV is not necessarily focused on music, but socials are first and foremost music. So how do you manage that?
It's a really great question, and something that I think if someone had the answer to, we would have a lot of things figured out. But in general, what I would say is there are specific social media teams at MTV to deal with our TV shows. So whether that's Jersey Shore, which is still on, or the Teen Mom franchises, or Siesta Key, there are specific social media teams for those shows, which kind of frees up the rest of MTV to fall to my team. And because someone, probably every 20 seconds on this earth, someone says, why doesn't MTV play music anymore? We are that music hub. And the other thought behind that is the VMAs still happen every year, and a lot of other music initiatives happen at MTV. We actually own a music festival too. So the thought behind my team is we're not a monetization team. We're not really earning money for the company. Our job is to keep people excited about the MTV music brand year round. So when it comes time for a tentpole event, people are just generally interested in MTV. But it is a struggle. Every single post that I go up with, you will see about 30 comments that say bring back Teen Wolf. You will see people who say, why do you play ridiculousness 24/7? And why don't you play music videos? So it's a lot of that, which is really fun. But my answer is, and I do have permission to publicly comment this on MTV, is I don't make that decision. So over on MTV's Instagram and our social media, it is really all things music, which is cool. And I
totally won't say bring back girl code.
Relating to the struggles, because I relate to them as well.
Yeah, I totally won't say bring back girl code. I'll keep that.
I'll say bring back girl code.
Okay,
Nicole
great.
Byer, come on.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
On the Warner Latina end, so our demographic changes amongst platforms. So something that we have similar with Matt is that it is 1834. But for example, on Instagram, even so, Warner Latina, it's in Miami. Its focus is on US Latin. But we get a lot of our fans are from Latin America also. So on Instagram, our demographic is definitely US and maybe mostly US, and then the rest can be small percentages Latin America, but on Facebook it's the opposite of that. So something that changes with that is the way that we speak to that audience on that specific platform. In the Latin community in the US, we speak a lot Spanglish. We mix the languages together, and that kind of translates into our copy. We use a lot of slang, especially since we're based in Miami, a lot of Miami slang, and that gets the people riled up on Instagram. But then on Facebook, our demographic, we can also probably say that it's a little bit older, and maybe a little bit on the conservative side. So for example, like I mentioned some reggaeton artists earlier, Justin Quiles, they don't do as well in Facebook as maybe Luis Miguel would do. Luis Miguel is maybe my grandma's type of music, but he does amazing on Facebook. And on Facebook, our copy would be 100% Spanish. And it would be very not slang at all, just very feeling the oldies vibes type of thing. So for each platform, we do have a different copy, even though we're trying to promote the same thing. Our copy is definitely different. Even on Twitter, you know, and the way we interact with fans, you know, we try to, in the comment section on Instagram, our fans, all they love to do is put fire emojis. And so we're like, yeah, you know, getting fired up. But then on Facebook, it's like, oh, I love Luis Miguel. And we're like, oh my God, we love him too. So it's definitely different vibes, different style of everything. So at least on our end, we definitely had to study it to see what worked best because it is different audiences completely.
First of all, shout out Luis Miguel. I've been watching the series and it's so good. I literally
Right
binged
now,
that
that's
this
the
weekend.
focus.
And I'm not a grandma yet, but I truly love his music. I think in terms of, I mean, on my end, things are a little bit different. I do kind of, you know, from the outside see what's happening with like at Sony Music, just because that's kind of like the voice of, you know, just Sony Music Entertainment's roster. So we work with, you know, a different roster in like Sony Music Latin, and then there's the roster in like different parts of the world. So we try to spotlight a little bit of that on our socials. But I think just in terms of, you know, what Chris was saying before, it's really interesting how on TikTok there's like just a completely different language that has been developing, especially in the last year. Just the way that people comment, like saying like, you know, when they're very shocked, like they won't even finish a sentence. It's just like I'm, and you know, it's just like a dash and that's it. Or like I'm dead, or like Chugi, or you know, all these things. So I feel like getting the brand to really kind of jump on this and like being part of the meme, being part of the narrative and the conversation, that's just another layer of being a social media channel manager. I feel like obviously we've seen like Wendy's, like Twitter, you know, trolling people, and that's just kind of part of, you know, the branding itself, because you know, you're kind of expanding the voice of that brand and just showing a new kind of face to it, and I feel like people really appreciate that. So I think, yeah, just in terms of like how corporate brands or just in general all these organizations can really leverage having this new space to like express themselves and jumping into you know, pop culture. I think social media has really just helped harness that.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I recently learned last week that apparently Bestie is starting to go out of style. And I mean, Matt, you look shocked by that, and I was too. I hope it's not true. I still use it too much. But it
Yeah,
sounds difficult to keep up.
I'll add to that and say for us, totally platform by platform is a huge difference. I run the Instagram and I'm very grateful I don't run the TikTok, because the other thing with TikTok is everyone's For You page really is very different and curated to them. I have never gotten a Charlie D'Amelio or Addison Rae on my For You page, and no shade, I hope it stays that way. But on that note, like we have to post them on TikTok for them to do well. If I post Addison Rae on Instagram, I get obliterated. Like we tried and it just it did not go well. Which is, you know, there are people on my team who are younger than me and are so kind of obsessed with the TikTok generation of artists. And like always saying like, oh, why aren't we posting them? And it's like, you don't want to see what happens when we post them. But yeah, there are things that we do on Instagram that wouldn't work on Facebook. I think we kind of, if we're thinking like oldest to youngest, we typically go Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you want to put Snap in there, we do still have an active presence on Snap, and then TikTok. But if your brand is something that caters to older, you know, I'm saying older as in not teens, older people, that still could work on TikTok, because you're going to reach people who just see a totally different For You page. You're going to reach me. And it's just a totally different experience based on what you interact with.
I also want to shout out, I feel like MTV does a really good job with the comments on YouTube. Like when there's an official video coming out, you're like,
Yes.
I don't know, it's very like young slang, like, oh, I can't breathe, or whatever, like this is crazy, or so yeah, I love what
kind of
MTV
like
does, and
an interesting newer thing, because our social team interestingly does not handle YouTube at all. It's a huge priority for the company, so they don't let us have it. It's all audience development and like monetization. But I'm really good friends with the woman who runs it, and she's good friends with like all my coworkers. So I think she saw that we were having so much fun that she was like, I'm gonna have fun too. But yeah, no, we do see the feedback of people being like, oh my God, I can't believe MTV is here again. And that's like some of the most rewarding stuff. So
yeah, I think MTV responds is like everywhere, which is pretty impressive. But yeah, I'll throw it over to Mia with the next question.
Yes. So what do each of your processes look like in terms of curating content for social media?
And I know Yibing, you mentioned you're not necessarily firsthand curating that content, but what are your advice in terms of like best practices and that?
I mean, I feel like for artists, it's really case by case scenario. It really depends on who the artist is. If you think about Lil Nas X, he's just such a force when it comes to memes, and he has like just a sixth sense. He knows everything that's going on in the world. One time we tried to launch these ads in Netherlands, and he somehow like found out about them, and he was like, wait, I didn't approve this. And we're like, oh, we didn't think you were gonna see this. So he's really everywhere, which is incredible. And I feel like it really translates into how he rolls out his projects. So for Montero, we had so many different versions of the same video, but it was like really playing on this meme of like Montero, but Lil Nas X is like silent the entire time, and it was basically the instrumental version of the track. So that's kind of one way to go about it. There's other people who are a little bit more candid on their social media. They're trying to like really give you a little bit more about like their narrative and their personal story, because that's so much of what their craft is about, and also the lyrics of their songs. So if we think about someone like Clinton Kane, who is very up and coming, he's very much that candid person. But then you have someone like Rosalia or Harry Styles, who the way that they curate their socials is just very like, they know that they're in a very stratospheric kind of level in terms of like their fame, well, not their fame, but just how they're touching pop culture. So they are really more guarded in that regard, and they try to keep their personal lives separate from like the persona that they're like building through their narrative. So yeah, that's just kind of what I've noticed through my work.
I know that like if I see a -H at the end of anything, it's Harry, like it's a strong force. And I also work for Sony, so I know what the NDAs look like. So if you can't comment on it, no worries. But like you said, Lil Nas X is such a strong force on social media. And I know a ton of creatives either just approach that differently, like you said, like Harry, or, just really don't want much to do with social media. So they have a team who curates it for them. Is Lil Nas X's social media, is that organic from him, or is that an effort that's pushed by Sony?
I mean, it's a lot of it is from him. Like he's up at like 5 a.m. in LA, like already retweeting things and reposting. It's pretty incredible.
That is incredible, for sure.
And I would say for someone like him, like if it switched and it wasn't him running it, like the fans would be able to tell. I would say something similar happened with Doja Cat, who like, I feel like both Doja Cat and Lil Nas X really like mastered the internet before the internet found them and gave them what they were worth. But Doja Cat definitely had a not great 2020, her own fault, but I think that resulted in her detaching from her social media, and now like it just doesn't feel as authentic, except on TikTok, where it's definitely still all her. But like I keep getting ads for Planet Her, and I get you gotta put paid behind it, but like it just doesn't feel like the same Doja Cat that was around a year ago.
When I think of her socials, I think of her on IG Live or TikTok, like you said.
Totally, yes, and she doesn't even go on Instagram Live as much as she used to. And I will say, selfishly, she used to go on all the time, and I would comment all the time, and we were honestly friends to a certain digital extent. And now when she goes live, she doesn't really even read the comments. It's like a totally different experience that I guess is a slight bummer for me. In terms of curating content on MTV, it is like so many different things at once, because there's the times where we have to support our tentpole events, but our team really is empowered to kind of post what we think is going to work best. Like sometimes for a big event like the VMAs, they'll be like, all right, like let's say there's 15 performances, we want to post, this is all totally made up, but let's say we want to post 10 of them, because we don't want to post the whole thing because we want people to watch it on demand or something. I don't think that's something they would do anymore, but something they did in the past. They would really leave it up to us and be like, choose the 10 people that you think that will resonate on your specific platform. And they do kind of trust us with that a bit. Outside of our tentpoles, it really does come down to like who we want to, like whose fan bases we want to reach. We kind of have an idea of our voice as we're not like the super hardcore fan. Well, we are, but like our face is that we're actually friends with these people. So like Olivia Rodrigo is my friend. So I'm not gonna post like, for the most part, I'm not going to post like, OMG, I'm dying and I am hyperventilating. I'm going to post like, so proud of you. And that's a conversation that we actually have like once a year. We're like, all right, what is our persona this year? And how do we talk about these artists? But that it differs because like we had mentioned, like Yibing had mentioned about Harry Styles, having like, you know, it's a different persona that he or his team give off on social. I'm allowed to freak out about Harry Styles because Harry Styles is never going to be my friend. So it's kind of approaching artists from like how we would personally relate to them.
Never say never.
Never say never.
I think on our end, when it comes to creating content, we don't create content for the social media accounts of our artists. But we just handle our own social media accounts. And one of the initiatives that we were trying to push on our end was that we wanted to be more fan engaged. Matt kind of saw it as he does it more from, I am the friend of the artist. We do it more of, we are the fan of that artist just like you are. And so, we're posting these things about artists because we have assets for these artists, but just as much as you're freaking out for the Mike Towers album that at the time was about to come out, we are also freaking out about this album. And so that's our perspective on it. And one of the things that I found to be really beautiful was when I first started, we were definitely just focusing on posting assets. And the plan or the idea was, what can we do to go beyond that? And like I said, we want to be part of this fan base with the fans. And one of the things was just get the fans more involved. So I literally reached out to fan clubs. And for example, for Women's Month, we made videos, like a video compilation of, we asked the fan clubs, like, there was 3 different questions, each one for a different week. And for example, one of them was like, you know, what words of encouragement would you give a woman, you know, that's going through a rough time, or that doesn't maybe see herself as worthy, you know, like, what would you say to her? And all these fans, I thought, I was very like, you know, I was going with like a lot of caution, because I'm like, oh my God, none of these fans are gonna respond. And in the end, they actually all sent in videos, all of these fan clubs, to the point that I couldn't even fit them all in the compilation. And they all had like amazing, inspiring things to say each week. And this was for the entire Women's Month. We just figured out ways to get these fans involved, and our, in all platforms, our follower count went up. And it's because these fans really do want to be part of, you know, the story. The story that we're building as a brand, as Warner. You know, one of our things is hashtag Warner Fam, and fans would literally in the comments would put, oh my God, hashtag Warner Fam, thank you so much. You know, they see themselves as part of this Warner fam. So yeah, that's how I was creating content at the time, just really fan based. Apart from the assets, you know, that's created by um an external party, and of course, like I mentioned earlier, you know, we have to create the copy. But further than that, you know, just getting the fans involved is the focus of our content creation.
I mean, that's a great segue to our next question. If you want to kick us off with that as well, which is, what are some best practices you've used in an effort to boost fan engagement and create engaging marketing campaigns? And in that case that you just described, it was so authentic and so pure, and also had such a great impact on, you know, it sounds like, the brand as well.
Yeah. And you know, that was one of the initiatives for Women's Month. And like I said, the best practices during my time there was definitely just getting the fans involved. And not only in these little, you know, like the video that I mentioned, but even in the comments, it was more than just liking a comment. It was, if this person was saying, for example, I remember on Twitter, it was a Sunday, and the tweet was something simple like, enjoy your Sunday, you know, Sundays are lazy, so are our tweets. So I kind of just, you know, I said like, listen to this playlist, something like that. And there was a fan that in the comments, she mentioned that she was feeling sad. And so I was like, oh my God, this is my time to shine. And I was like, I kind of just said, oh my God, so let me recommend this playlist instead, so that you can lift your spirits up. And there was an entire conversation going on. And then at the end, the last thing she said was, you know what would make it better? I just want to get a kiss from Paula Loran, which is one of our artists. And I was like, okay, so now she's all better. Thank you for the Sunday conversation. But that's like one of the best practices, and at least in my opinion, is literally have conversations with these fans. It is content within itself. This conversation is content within itself. And next time that you post something, that same exact fan is gonna wanna have a conversation with you again. And other fans are like, oh wait, Warner is responding a lot more than just a like. Let me say something slick, and we end up having like a funny conversation. So I think on our end, that is definitely one of the tips that I would give for best practices. Like, don't be cold. You know, just see the fans as your friend. In the end, we're all human. and we all, you know, go through the ups and downs in life. And it's really cool when someone, you don't know who that person is. I remember someone was like, I really want to know who's behind these Twitter fingers. And you, because you don't know who's talking back to you, but sometimes you just want to be heard. And like I said, it makes a great opportunity to create your own content within a conversation. So that's what I think.
I think it's such a great point. Of not just even like, you know, not just responding once, like check back to see if they replied to you and keep the conversation going, is a huge thing that we try to do, especially on Twitter. It can get really hard on Instagram because the app is trash and really hard to work with. But I try my best to go back and look at what people are saying. I would say like I approach it just the slightest bit different on Instagram, with our like trying to view ourselves as like friends of these artists. In relation to fans, we view ourselves as like a big sibling. So occasionally like we can be a little mean, which is also like fun. Today someone commented on a video I posted from the MTV Movie and TV Awards in 2019 of some of the Euphoria cast, and it was getting a lot of comments of like, I don't know who this is, which is, you know, something people on the internet say a lot. And I think I responded just like, sorry to hear that XOX. So that's something that they let me do, which is really fun. And it, you know, there are people who then get mad, but it's just like, I by no means believe that all engagement is good engagement, but I don't think that like negative engagement is always bad. I think that if it's, you know, for the right reason, like I wanted to stand up for the Euphoria cast, then it can't be for the right reason. Something else that I've done on Instagram is actually put like a call out in my captions to just have a conversation with me. Like on National Pet Day, I think I just did like 4 pictures of like musicians with their pets, and then I said like, let me know the names of your pets below. And then I just like responded and I was like, oh my God, tell Dolly I say hi, and just stuff like that. And on Instagram, it matters so much because if you are not engaging with a profile, you're not going to see their posts anymore. And that's a huge problem we have is, you know, we have a lot of followers, but so many of those followers probably followed us in 2014 and they just don't see our content. Like the amount of our audience that we actually reach is really kind of pathetically low. So I always am trying to do things to get people to just engage one time, to hopefully see more of our content in the future.
Just in terms of user experience, I think TikTok, the feature that they have to respond to comments with another video is so genius because then you can post it below the original video. So you kind of extend the lifespan of a specific conversation. And I think in general, you know, I'm all about just the chatter, like what are people saying, keeping track of that. Is it trending anywhere? Why is it trending? Why all of a sudden this is trending in like, you know, Spain when we have never seen trends there before, and we're working with like hip-hop repertoire, which, you know, in Latin markets it's usually a little bit harder to like get that to translate. Like having all these, I mean, at the end of the day, that's how you get the bigger picture of like what the feedback is overall on your, you know, specific project, or, you know, whatever you're trying to like promote, market, or just show to the world. So yeah, I think just keeping that conversation going is just really important, and it's a key part of the marketing campaign, to be honest.
And just to sort of piggyback what you guys were saying about, or what Matt was saying about having those questions, you know, to in the captions to sort of get a conversation going, I think is so essential. You know, right before leaving Warner, I made a list of things that I learned. And one of the main things was if your caption is too long, start with the question first. Because that is what the fan, or that's the first thing they're gonna see. And then if you want, you can be like, and this album comes out on blah 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 blah. But get that engagement going, that engaging question going first, because I definitely have noticed that if you start with all this other extra information in the beginning, they're never going to engage with what you're going to say at the end. Oh, so what's your favorite song in the album? That should not be at the end. Start with that in the beginning, and then have them going crazy in the comments. And then as they're scrolling, they're probably going to see the other part of the information that you wanted to say. So yeah, that's one of the things that I have to give you guys.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. I'll throw it over to Mia with the next question.
What advice would you give to any young POC LGBTQ professionals looking to get into the social media management in the music industry?
Well, I'll just start because I don't manage social media again, but just in general, I feel like working in the music industry, something that I thought was really empowering is that no matter what you do, it's gonna affect your career. It's gonna affect your career in a way. Every single person that you meet along the way and every project that you work on is gonna somehow tie into something else that you're gonna do in the future. I'm sure that sounds scary because it's a lot of responsibility, but it's also very empowering because at the end of the day, you really do have the ability to do something today that will come back to you in the future. So that's just my 2 cents on working in the music industry.
Totally. I'll just bounce off of that and say, so many people working in the music industry now are people who had fan accounts on mostly Twitter, maybe Tumblr and Instagram. And I never shied away from mentioning that in interviews. That was something that I viewed as an asset. I was a Fifth Harmony harmonizer, loud and proud. Not proud anymore, but at one point I was. So I really I think that having that experience firsthand, and being able to translate that to a brand is so powerful, and it's really what people are looking for. I mean, I look at people I know in the fandom, and we are all across the industry now, and that was the harmonizers. Can you imagine when the BTS army is taking over the industry? Then we're all out of a job. But I would just really say that don't shy away from those embarrassing things. I didn't tell a soul in high school. No one knew that I was this gay boy with a Fifth Harmony Twitter account. And I just kind of started to own it, and it really helped me, and it differentiates you from the people who I tend to just occasionally get a little annoyed at the people who their advice is oh, well, you got to read the trades, you got to stay up on all the updates about Instagram, and you got to figure out all the best practices. You should learn the best practices because you know how to do them yourself. So that's my 2 cents.
Someone check in on Camila Cabello. Is she all right? That's all.
She blocked me on Twitter. We can talk about that later.
We will talk about that later.
I think one of the things that I definitely want to say to you guys is that don't let who you are, the things that you use to identify yourself, limit you. And the reason that I'm saying that is, I hadn't mentioned it before, but I'm right now currently working in Korea. I am a Latina working in Korea. How did that happen? When I was 15 years old, I was on YouTube and I randomly saw on related searches, I was listening to the Backstreet Boys, and on related searches, YouTube was like, okay, this girl likes boy groups. And I saw an Asian boy and I'm like, what is this? I clicked on it and I was hooked on K-pop ever since. That is way before BTS. And I from that moment, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to school in Korea. I'm just gonna somehow do something in Korean music. And like I said, I was just a small town girl from a town called West Palm Beach in Florida, and I ended up moving to LA, doing a year in Korea, and now I'm here working. So don't let your cultural background, anything that you use to identify yourself, don't let that limit you. The possibilities are always, and I know it's cliche, but it really is endless. And I am not, I go out into the subway and everybody stares at me. Here in Korea, they're like, is she American? Because Latin is kind of rare, so they don't automatically think, oh, she's Latina. So yeah, I think that is such a big part of me. Everything that I did in my life was outside of my comfort zones, and I think that that is so essential to everybody. Um, if there's something that you like, and it's from a completely different country, learn the language, do what you got to do, and do it. Not there's no limitations in life. So that's my advice.
So
I also wanted to jump on in that front, just in terms of like intersections. My cultural background is, I'm from Mexico City. I was born and raised in Mexico City, but my parents are Chinese, so it was kind of a lot of different types of like music and culture, growing up. And I feel very, grateful that I'm able to work in like an international team. So again, it's like kind of me bringing this contextual background into the team that I currently work for. And I do feel like those intersections allowed me to bring something different to the table. I am able to communicate in Spanish and talk to my counterparts in Latin America, and then I'm also able to like speak in Chinese. And I also think that in general, what we've seen, and I'm sorry, I love TikTok, so I just will bring up TikTok for every talking point that I have. But I think on TikTok, we've realized that there's a niche for everything. And even the weirdest quirk that you have, if you post about it, you never know, you might find someone who will have that quirk too. And it's kind of a way to like maybe realize that we're not that like lonely in the world. It's kind of crazy because it's like all these things that maybe made you feel isolated before are like strengths that will maybe bring you closer to like strangers that are in different parts of the world.
That was so beautifully said. And I think back to high school and like being ashamed of certain things, which now I do just view as a strength, and like what has led me to where I am.
totally. And Matt, you also brought up queer culture a little bit. And I remember, I feel like queer culture felt like I was keeping it a secret in high school, and it lived on Tumblr solely. And like logging into Tumblr felt like you were like unlocking your queer identity for like the night. Like you ended your day, you came home from high school, and you're like, you had this whole world of friends who were really like the only people who knew who you fully were. And there was a niche for everything on Tumblr, I feel like too. And so I feel like,
and I mean, I just a brief like anecdote about me. So in high school, like part of me, like half of me was all in on Fifth Harmony, and the other half of me was all in on Minecraft. So like these things were very different. And I didn't talk about either of them. And then, I came out, I was a proud harmonizer. But I still didn't tell anyone that I was a gamer on top of that. So that's been something like in the past year that I've like really like reconnected with. And like Twitch is such a huge platform right now. And so many of our biggest influencers in the world right now are actually just streamers. I don't even call them gamers anymore. They're just streamers. So just, those things that you could be ashamed of definitely can be a strength.
And those worlds don't always collide in a friendly way. I know a lot of like gaming culture is like, I will say, I will come out and be proud about playing League of Legends. And if I am on mic for any of that, and they hear that I'm a woman, it is game over. It's game over. So
it's bad, yeah, but it's getting better. It's getting
yeah,
better.
they're making waves on the daily. I agree. So
I just
for our
wanted to
last
shout
question,
out one more thing. Someone
no,
said,
go ahead.
it was hard for people to take Stan accounts seriously when they're applying for jobs. You should 100% include that in your resume or your cover letter. It's so vital and so huge right now that you have an understanding of how a fandom works. And I honestly, that would like instantly like catch my eye. So you should definitely include that.
Super fans run it all. So for our last question before we go into Q&A, so we've watched as music and entertainment have attempted to grapple with a global pandemic, the fight for social justice, and more within the past year or so. So throughout this time, it's been really, really crucial for fans to see their favorite brands, artists, platforms expressing sentiments they can relate with, being vocal about their support. But not everyone has necessarily risen to that challenge. So how have you or your team gone about navigating this difficult climate for your own social media platform, and or how have you advised artists, brands you're working with to handle it?
I'll go ahead. So at MTV, I do feel really lucky, as I mentioned earlier, that my team is not expected to make money for MTV. And like the sad thing is that lets us have more freedom in this space, I would say. And just working for, a liberal skewing media company also helps as well. But we really can choose to like take stances as a team. Like even if MTV as a whole hasn't necessarily like put out a statement on something, it was not like that always, but it's something that last year really like came to be, that we can feel empowered to the same way that we decided what our voice was on social, we could also decide, our viewpoints. And a part of that was, shortly after the murder of George Floyd, we got a corporate statement, and the whole team was like, we can't put out this like BS corporate sounding statement. Considering that we use first person in almost every post, we cannot suddenly become like this third person, like giant entity. We need to be talking about this from a personal standpoint that like can actually do something with the followers we have. Like it's our responsibility. So writing, even when it comes to like big Viacom might make an asset for us, we will post that asset in language that works for us. And I've talked about like my own personal identity in captions as well, saying like I am not Black, but I have to be a white ally, and it's my responsibility to be in this fight as much as any of our audience. So I think that was a really big thing that we learned in 2020. I don't think it came naturally, and I don't think that it was something that we were doing well right off the bat. I think it's something that we really had to take time to do. Another thing that I would say we've paid special attention to in the last year is, we talked a lot about stan culture tonight. A lot of stan culture is straight up stolen from African American vernacular, and that has also been something that we just can't be careless about. That like I know people will make an argument on Twitter and be like, well, it's just stan language, like you have to get over it. If you're not capable of being funny without stealing language, I think that's a problem. So that's also something that MTV, I don't think that we have permission to be using certain kinds of language. So that's something that we definitely have to approach thoughtfully. But my team is actually half MTV, half VH1. And at VH1, it's an all Black social team, and that's really like the focus of their demographic as well. So they use language differently than us. And I think that is something that unfortunately we probably wouldn't have been thinking about a year ago.
think it ties into something you said a bit earlier about certain artists not posting as themselves anymore and how fans can sort of see through that. Because if MTV had put out that corporate statement, that would have been extremely transparent. And another, to your point about African American vernacular, I think a great example is this past weekend on SNL. Really, really poor attempt at a skit that was, I think it was entitled Gen Z in the ER or something, and it just, I don't recommend watching it, but it's all AAVE, it's all black scent, it's tasteless, and like you said, if you can't be funny without that, then probably just not funny.
I think to give my perspective on this, on the Latina side, it is a very, very, very difficult situation because Latinos are so split in views, in political views, in everything. You know, I think many people think we're all the same, but we're not. And it is so difficult, you know, me being a first generation American and, you know, seeing my parents go through the immigrant struggle. And there's so many things that I would love to talk about and, you know, kind of, in a sense, rebel on our social platforms, but I can't. Because again, going back to the demographics that I was talking about earlier, many of our followers are from Latin American countries, and those Latin American countries, they might know what's going on in the US, but they don't feel it the way we do, and they have different priorities. And you know, whether I remember, for example, when the voting season was coming through, it was all like, Chris, you need to be completely, you know, you can't be for one side or the other. And I'm over here like, but I'm from one specific side. And it's like, I can't say anything about that because Latinos are so split when it comes to political views. You know, depending on what country you're from and depending on the struggles that you had in your own country. And of course, most first generation, emphasis on most, first generation Americans, Latino Americans, are probably just like me in terms of my views, but that's not the case completely. And their parents most likely are not in the same boat either. So it's definitely difficult in terms when you think about US Latin. We are definitely a bit more, I guess, in a sense, censored. We try not to choose sides. That's why when Matt was talking, I was like, oh my God, so lucky. Because I wish I could say everything, you know, that my heart feels when it comes to these social problems that we have in the US. But unfortunately, we couldn't. So what we try to do is unfortunately pick and choose the problems that we want to talk about. For example, I keep going back to Women's Month, but on Women's Month in the beginning, you know, something that is super, super strong in Latin American countries is I don't know how to say it in English, femicidio, females getting murdered, and femicide? I don't even know. I'm sorry, guys. My
Femicide?
Spanglish. Yeah. So it's big, you know, and especially in Mexico, there is a whole day where women just leave the office and go march. And so that is something that we were like, okay, no, we definitely need to say something about that. And we did have like that entire day we did not post, and we put out like a statement or an asset basically saying why we're not going to be posting and how we're going to be dedicating the entire month to women after that day. So like I said, pick and choose is what we have to do in the Latin community in terms of managing the social media platforms. So yes, I am very jealous of that.
I feel like on my end, the biggest like learning that we had, or that I at least I had personally, was just, you know, obviously all the artists that we work with and the platforms that we have access to, they are really big and they mean something. So if you're not doing something with that mode of communication that you have access to, then you're really doing a disservice to the people that you're providing content to. Because at the end of the day, when you're working in music, you're working in culture, and such a big part of the culture was really hurting during that time. So to not acknowledge that was just really just not okay. Like you probably shouldn't be working in this business if you're not gonna acknowledge some of the biggest kind of creators that are providing all the music that we are able to listen to and like enjoy. And so that was one side of things. And I think something that in the future I want to continue seeing is all these big platforms to to keep providing learning opportunities and just resources, because I wanted to see more things that were more pragmatic and actionable. And obviously a lot of companies were also donating a lot of money, which is great, because I really believe that you should put your money where your mouth is. And if you're really supporting a cause, then money is what is moving things forward and what's able to help grassroots organizations. And so that's one side of things. And also obviously there were missteps along the way. So a recent one that I remember, well, I shouldn't call out another label. I forget the name of the label anyway, but when all the stuff was happening with Stop Asian Hate, this label posted a yellow square on their feed. And it's just like, this is so misinformed. This is not helping the cause in any way. This is not raising awareness. Like, so it's been a learning process for everyone, and that's great. But I just hope that all these platforms understand the power that they have with the followers and their supporters, and that they're able to do something with that platform.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. So yeah, we do have 3 Q&A questions. If we want to, try to keep it within time, each of you can take one. It's up to you. So our first one is from Alana.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I've had such a great time attending this panel, and I just want to thank you all for your time and for sharing all of your stories. This has been so awesome. My question is, how do you maintain a work-life balance boundaries while working in the 24/7 environment of social media?
And I feel like that's something each of you could answer. So why limit time? just do whatever you'd like.
You want to go? Go ahead.
Sure. Well, I work also international digital marketing, so that means that I work a lot of different time zones. By the time, right now, Korea is awake, China is awake, Australia. So sometimes it is a little bit difficult to, keep that balance. I think just overall, when there's a big project, of course, we'll give it more time, but just trying to, I've been waking up much earlier now than I used to when I was going into the office, because I'm just like, this morning hours for me now are sacred. This is like me time. And I'm not going to look at my phone right now. And I'm just going to like go on a walk or whatever, look at the birds. So I think, it's been a process, because we've been doing this for over a year now. From home too, I feel like when you were going into the office, there was a little bit more of like an established boundary. I don't know if I'm answering your question. Social media never sleeps, but especially during the pandemic.
Very true. Very true. I think it's gotten a lot harder. For me, it's kind of a weird answer, but like my first love was Twitter, and it still is. And thankfully, and I mean this, thankfully I don't run the MTV Twitter, because I think if I did, it would just like take the fun out of it for me. For me, I don't really care about Instagram personally. I very rarely post anything on my personal Instagram. So when I use Instagram, I'm mainly using the MTV Instagram. I'm scrolling through that feed instead of my own. So like, I guess that's less of a work-life balance, because like all of my Instagram consumption is basically for work. But like I would want to be seeing what my favorite musicians were posting anyway. But yeah, I think the answer is that it's not a great work-life balance. So it's doing those things. Like I do go for a walk after work every single day to just detach from staring at a screen or at my phone all day long.
Yeah, everything that Matt said is exactly how I feel. There is no balance. I tried, I swear. But I think, luckily there's also tools, just to name a few, like Hootsuite, Meltwater. There's things that you can do to help you a little bit. Um, but it's a never ending game. And just like Matt said, I also find myself at midnight when I was at Warner, on the Warner Latina Instagram, chatting with artists, like, commenting on their posts, like, oh, haha, this is so funny. And one time I'll never forget, I posted the comment from my personal account, but my brain was thinking that it was the Warner Latina account. I'm like, oh my God, delete. And then I had to sign into the Warner Latina account and say the exact same comment. So it just becomes a part of you. And I think if you love it, then you do it, and you kind of, like us, you just get over the fact that there is no balance because you do love it. But and you'll find out very early on whether it's something that you actually want to do or not, because if you do want a work-life balance, then maybe it's not for you, and that's fine. There's so many other things that you can do in the music industry. But yeah, I think always try to look for tools to at least get you an hour, 2 hours in a day to just be yourself, and not have to worry about those posts. And yeah.
Totally. And I would just add, like, there's ways to work in social and digital without being the ones running the platforms, and those will have more work-life balance generally.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Alana. All right, we have up next, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing, Lottie Day.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry
Hi,
if I
yeah,
mispronounced your username.
yeah, it's Lottie Day, but you can just call me Lottie, that's fine. Let me just look at this, what I type in here. Okay. My question is, first off, just thanks for being here, everybody, and thanks for taking this question. My question is, what tips do you have for non-artists or like non-front facing music creatives, like songwriters, producers, engineers, etc., who are looking to build their personal brands on social media, but don't necessarily have the appeal of an artist or an influencer or somebody who's, front facing?
Really great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think something that I've noticed is, for example, there is a film director. He does a lot of the music videos that we worked, that we made, and something that he does is he creeps on into every post somehow. And at first I was like, why does he keep commenting? It's so weird. But now after seeing it a couple times, I'm like, wow, like this is himself saying, this is my art. I made this, and so at least on my end, what I started doing was, oh my God, we love the video. And if if there's a amazing person, not an amazing person, but if there's a smart person in the back of that platform, in the back of that account, they're gonna want to interact with you. And I think that's what makes this ecosystem beautiful. Like, as long as everybody's trying to interact with everybody, I think people that were behind the scenes can also be, get that spotlight on them. I think what would be great is, just like I just mentioned, literally interacting with the label whenever they post, you made a song, you were part of the songwriting team of that song. Say, oh my God, I loved making this song. Don't shy away from those things. Don't think that they're gonna look down on you for it. Other people are gonna be just like you, and maybe they're gonna want to write songs too, and they're gonna see your comment and they're gonna be inspired by it. They're gonna want to reach out, and little by little, your fan base just gets bigger and bigger. So I think it's more about, don't be shy to do things like that, and hopefully the other person in the other account can start an interaction for you. Yeah.
I would second all of that. I do see it on our accounts as well, with like, if we post like a Getty image of someone on a red carpet, like their stylists will comment, their makeup artists will comment, and it's like really cool to see. And the fans who know like that this stylist always works with the same artist will comment back and be like, oh my God, you did such a good job. And it's always really, really cool to see. I'd also say that like, I definitely know, especially in terms of songwriters, like there are really like, the same way that, on TikTok, you have your own For You page and it's pretty catered to you. I feel like also I do see on Instagram, like there definitely are communities that form. And I know that songwriters definitely are always like advocating collectively on Instagram, because there's a lot to be advocating for songwriters.
I'm gonna talk again about TikTok. I think TikTok is just so good also for like behind the scenes stuff and for tutorials. So I've seen a lot of producers who like give you a short like lesson of how they put together a beat. And that's super interesting to watch. And I think it really shows what your craft is, what you're good at, and in a way that just makes sense and resonates with a potential fan base. So yeah, TikTok, man. I think it's a good place just to just get everything out there.
All comes back to TikTok. All right, last Q&A question. I believe it's from Evan. Hey, Evan, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Sorry. Hello. So I'm wondering, so how many hours in a day would you say an artist should be engaging and trying to start conversations with their fans through comments, etc.? And would it be unethical to employ chatbots to make this important but time-consuming task more doable? Do any mainstream artists use similar tactics?
Awesome question. Thanks, Evan.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think, just what we were saying earlier about, it's really obvious when the corporation takes over and they're like using your voice and it's not really the artist using the social media. I wouldn't really go with the chatbot when you're trying to engage with fans. I feel like, whatever is feasible for you, like in your schedule, but just allocate some time every day. It's either 1 hour, 2 hours to just scroll through TikTok or Twitter or Instagram and see what people are talking about. If you want to jump on a conversation that is current, or if you want to look at like your own tags and hashtags and see if people are commenting about the music that you just put out, and then you just kind of go from there and start like chatting with people. But I wouldn't really make anything automatic, just because you won't feel like the person on the other side of the post or the line are not going to feel that personal connection. And I feel like at the end of the day, that's the most valuable part of that interaction, and that's what people are looking for.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say like the one the like instances where I could see that maybe making sense is like Lady Gaga's like Chromatica era. Like if it like can kind of fit into like the aesthetic, then maybe it makes sense. Or also I remember when I was in college, there was an artist who like went by Who Is Fancy and like no one knew their identity. So like something like that I could see being like kind of cool if it turns into like a game. But yeah, I would totally agree. And just say that like for most artists, like their persona in 2021 should really just be themselves. So like using social media the way that like you authentically would, I think is the best way to really connect with people.
I definitely agree with that. One of our artists, I can say maybe when I first went into Warner, let's say 2 years ago, um, he was not as active on social media, or more specifically on Instagram. And then all of a sudden, when the pandemic happened, it's like, what else do you have to do? There's nothing else to do but post. And so he would just do these crazy things. And I remember one time one of his songs came out and he decided to do like a skit where he was the mom, the dad, the sister, like he would just change clothing. And this was someone that was barely ever on social media. And that it was like an IGTV, and that small video just went viral, and his follower count went up like you have no idea. And so like Matt said, after that it just became a thing for him. Like, if he walks his cat, if he's walking his cat, there's a little reel of him walking his cat, little things. And so the question was, how much time should an artist, be spending on social media? And I think there is no actual answer to that, because in my opinion, if an artist is constantly on social media, I think it does great. At least on our end, the numbers have not lied on that part. If an artist is posting a lot about their regular life, literally like, this is what I'm eating for breakfast, those little things get so much engagement, and engagement that sometimes has nothing to do with the video. Like, this is what I had for breakfast, and there's a fan in the comments saying, oh my god, I'm so excited for your album that comes out today. So I definitely think that artists should be spending more time. If your artist is not doing it, I definitely think they should.
Great question. Thanks again, Evan. All right. We are like 15 minutes over, so I don't think we have time for our wrap-up question, but I appreciate each of our panelists sticking with us and also our attendees. It's been really great. So I'll throw it over to Mia to close us out for the night.
Yes. Thank you all so much, and to our wonderful panelists for joining us this Monday evening. For those of you who are new, I see a few new names. You can find out all details about our next events, especially with Pride coming up. We have a lot of really cool programs that we're doing for Pride, so definitely stay tuned for that by just following us at Color Music Collective for everything, and just subscribing to our newsletter, which you can find on our website. But yeah, with that, have a great rest of your week, everybody, and have a great rest of your evening for those on the East Coast.
Thank you so much, everyone. Great to meet you all.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.